alone is what the plants do up in the wilderness, alright? So we've got ourselves a little celery here, and I'm going to illustrate what's going to occur when the water goes into the stem. Stem starts at the bottom, flows all the way up to the top, and we've got ourselves a hoorah of color.
Hey guys, so this video is about stems. I watched a Snapchat video story, whatever you call them, about how angle. So thinking I should start putting my camera up here, maybe get a better angle myself. Yeah, looks a lot better than down here. So might try that next time. Alright, so we are going to start stems. Let me go to the notes. Alright, so this one's going to be really quick, really easy. So let's first start with, I'm hoping that understand that there's two different types of stems. You can have a woody stem, or you can have the herbaceous stem, which is going to be like your green stems on most flowers. And so it's green. And then woody stems are usually on bushes and trees, but they're still going to look the same on the inside, and they're still going to do the same thing. So functions. All right, so this is a review from last week. So what is the function of a stem? So think about it. If it's a stem on a flower, what is the function of a stem? Okay, we'll go into the function. So we need to make sure that we support the leaves and flowers. So we've got to hold it up so that the flowers can, remember, be pollinated. If they were on the ground, not a lot's going to happen. If the leaves are laying on the ground, photosynthesis is going to be a lot harder. So we need to be able to support them, lift them up, get them off the ground. The major one we're going to talk about today is that the stem is going to transport. So it transports your food, water, minerals from one part of the plant, like the roots, up to the leaves, or up to the flower, or the food that's made in the leaves, like we talked about last time. And it transports that glucose back down to the roots. So that's a very important function of the stem. And the last one is the stem can store food. And this one is important for, like, let's say those trees that lose all their leaves in the winter. When you have a tree that loses its leaves, well, it's not making glucose. But what it does is it stores a whole bunch of the glucose to survive during the winter without its leaves. So it's almost like it kind of goes dormant. It has a whole bunch of food stored up in in the stems and the roots of a tree. Okay, very good. So that would be another function. All right, so when you're talking about what the inside of your stem looks like. So I actually kind of did a fun little experiment. I like to do these in class, but just a little demo. And so I did one at home. And so we have this, all I did was took celery, normal celery, and put it in, yesterday I put it in some water, and I just added red food coloring. And so the point of this was I wanted you to see that if it's resting in the red food coloring at the bottom, what's going to happen to that water and red food coloring up the stem of the celery to the leaves, okay? And it's kind of hard to see, but you can tell that the leaves of the celery are turning red. Well, that's because the stem is transporting the red food coloring up the stem to the leaves, and so the leaves are getting turned red. If I cut this stem, well, that's probably not a good one. Maybe we should try a different one. Experiments don't always work. My kids know that. Okay, so this one's really neat. This one was the blue food coloring. And again, the leaves, I know it's really hard for you to tell, but the leaves are actually turning blue. Can you see that? It's got like spots of blue. And this is a really fun experiment you can do with little brothers and sisters, and then explain, why do you think it's turning blue? We didn't dip these leaves in the blue food coloring, so maybe ask your little brother or sister, why is it turning blue? I know that would be nerdy. But all right, let's cut this one and see if it looks any better. All right, well, kind of. I don't think you'll be able to see it, but I really wanted you to see in the stem. I don't think you can see it at all. But there, let me go big. Let me go big. Okay. Oh, the lighting. There are tubes, several tubes in the stem of the celery, and you can actually see that they've been dyed blue. I know you probably can't see it, but okay, well, so I wanted you to try to see those, but I know it's kind of hard to tell on video. But what is that that's transporting the water up to the leaves? Well, if you remember from our last video, water, so WXY, so all those tubes that are colored blue in there that you can see right around the top of it, those are the xylem. So the xylem is turning blue because it's sucking up the blue water and it's carrying it up to the leaves, which also have xylem in them. So I just thought that would be a neat experiment. Unfortunately, you can't see it very well. Here is my other glass. I did a yellow, which kind of looks orange. And same thing, it turned all of my leaves kind of an orange color on my celery. So the leaves are kind of turning orange. We can cut this one and see, but I doubt you can see this one either. Oh, no, can't see that one at all because it blends with the green. So unfortunately, it didn't turn out like I wanted it to. I really thought you'd be able to see the red and the blue a lot better, but I don't know if you can see them. They're right along the top. It's a fun experiment to do at home. Try it. Check the xylem out. All right. I'm done being a nerd. Okay. All right. So what are the internal structures? Well, if I cut a stem of any kind, whether it's going to be your tree bark, the tree stump, or if it's going to be the stem of a flower, whatever we're cutting, you're going to see xylem and phloem in there because those are the vascular tubes that are going to transfer. So if you remember last time, xylem, XY, is going to transport water. So xylem transports water. And remember your hint, it's W for water, XY for xylem, and that's how you remember it. And then what direction does the xylem flow if it's transporting water? Pulled my Mickey Mouse. Hopefully you said up. That's what I'm going to go with. That you said the direction is it's going from the roots, absorbing the water, up to the leaves and the stem. All right, the phloem is going to transport food, which would be your glucose. And so remember, your way to remember that is phloem and food. And if we are transporting glucose that's made in the leaves for photosynthesis, in what direction are we going to flow the glucose? Well, most of the time it's going to be down to the roots and the stem. If the stem is not able to do photosynthesis, we need to get that glucose to them. So, review from last time. I told you we're going to talk about the xylem and phloem a lot, so hopefully you remembered it. All right, so when we go to a picture of different tree trunks, or this picture is actually a picture of a root, but you can see the xylem and the phloem in there, and it's little bitty cells that stack up on top of each other and kind of make like a tube, like a straw. Okay, but my favorite thing is the tree stump. So when you look at a tree stump, most of you already know if I cut a tree down, I'm going to find rings on the inside. Okay, and if you count the rings, you should know how old the tree is. So, but what's actually making those rings? Well, what's making the rings is actually the xylem. So it's those vascular bundles that are making the rings. So you have what's called your cambium. Okay, and the cambium produces, it makes xylem and phloem. So when you have like a really wet season, like where it's raining a lot, okay, you want bigger xylem that don't have as thick of a cell wall so that they can transport a lot of that water during a rainy season up So during that season, the cambium is going to make these xylem that have thinner cell walls. We call them like primary. Then whenever it starts to get really, really hot, we're going to then produce, the cambium will produce thicker cell walls, xylem that have thicker cell walls, okay? And so when you're doing that, the old xylem goes in the middle and the new xylem starts to get formed around it. And then those become old and we make new xylem. And then those are old and we make new xylem. And so what's happening is your tree's growing this way. And every time you get an old one, it makes a ring. And then we grow new ones, so it makes another ring. And then a new one, it makes another ring. And so the older your tree is, the more rings it's going to have because it's gone through those wet season, dry season, wet season, dry season. And it's trying to prevent losing water. So there's actually a whole study on this where they look at the rings and they can tell, wow, 15 years ago, this area had a very dry season. They can look at the rings and tell that because of how they're shaped. So the thickness of them, if it's a, really thin, then that might tell them that maybe that season was really wet and they didn't really have a dry season. It was really rainy. So they can actually tell what the weather was like looking at the rings. So that's another nerdy moment for you. All right, so again, phloem is a tissue that transports down, and your hint is food equals phloem. All right, so when you're looking at these two cross sections, so this is like me cutting cross section, would be me like cutting the stem here, and then cutting the stem again. So this is a cross section, okay, of the celery. And I could put it underneath the microscope, and I should be able to see the xylem and phloem. All right, so if we look at the leaf, let's look at the leaf here of the celery. I don't know if you can see it, but are those veins netted or parallel? Okay, well, I'm pulling a Mickey Mouse again where I'm assuming you answered. It is netted. So is that going to be a monocot or a dicot? Well, if you watched my video last time, it is a dicot because it is more advanced. So that means that the xylem and phloem would look more like this, like the tree stump, okay? Where you're going to have this inner layer. The inner layer is your xylem, okay? So that lighter layer there is your xylem. And then you have your cambium, which remember is what produces the xylem and produces the phloem cells. And so this outer darker layer that's on the outside of the cambium is your phloem. And again, that's for your dicots. Those are going to be any plant that has netted leaves or 4 and 5 multiples of petals. Okay, your monocot, their xylem and phloem kind of group together. And this picture isn't really my favorite because if you actually look at it underneath a microscope, the monocot looks like a bunch of aliens staring at you. I'll show you a picture, maybe right here. I'll put a picture right here. But you can see a bunch of like little aliens staring at you, and so it kind of always, I think it looks like aliens. You probably won't. But so this dark spot, and you can see that there's a bunch of them and they're grouped together. This is your phloem. Oops. And then the white spot is your xylem. So your xylem and phloem actually group together and in a monocot, and they kind of bunch up, and then you get a whole bunch of them that go around, whereas this, they're in one layer. So that would be your difference. On the PowerPoint over here, you can see, again, the xylem and the phloem. So xylem, is the pink and the phloem is the green. And they're just kind of bunches. And then in your dicot, you're going to have more like layers. Okay. So the orange layer is your xylem. Then you have your cambium, which is the blue. And then your outer layer, which is your phloem. And that's pretty much it for stems. You have different types of stems, which are pretty cool. So you have the rhizome, which is a type of stem that actually grows underground. And grows horizontally. You also have a stolon, which these are cool because these create runners. And so in a runner, your stem actually grows sideways. So this is like what a strawberry plant does. It's pretty neat. It grows its plant, and then off of the leaf, it grows like another stem with some roots, and then those will plant themselves in the ground and start to grow another plant. And so what you end up seeing is you see a plant, and then there's like a stem growing across the soil to another strawberry plant, and then a stem growing across the soil to another strawberry plant. And those are called runners because they run across the dirt. So that would be a really neat stem because it's growing horizontally to plant the other plant in the ground. And then you have a tuber, which is going to be just basically like a rhizome, but it stores food. So this would be like a potato. Okay, so lots of different types of stems. They're not just your basic, tree stump or on the flower, but I just thought you might want to know what they kind of look like on the inside. So very good. I hope you learned something, and I hope you have a great day. Talk to you later.